Good stovetop rice is not about stirring until it behaves. It is about setting up the pot so the rice can absorb water evenly, then leaving it alone. The grains should be tender, separate, and fluffy, with no wet top, no gummy bottom, and no scorched crust, unless you intentionally made one. The mush usually comes from three things working together: too much loose surface starch, too much movement, and unstable steam. If you stir while the grains soften, they break and release more starch. If you keep opening the lid, the steam escapes while the bottom keeps heating. The result is wet on top, dense underneath, and sometimes scorched. This method is for simple white long grain or jasmine style rice. Brown rice, sticky rice, sushi rice, parboiled rice, and instant rice need different water and timing. For a reliable first pass, cook 1 cup, about 200 grams, of white rice at a time. A small batch is easier to learn because you can see what your pot is doing. Use a pot that is not huge for the amount of rice, with a lid that fits tightly. A very wide pot evaporates water too quickly. A loose lid leaks steam before the rice finishes absorbing. You do not need special equipment, but the pot should trap steam predictably. If your lid rattles, keep the heat lower and expect to adjust water next time. Rinse the rice gently. Add water, swirl with your fingers, pour off the cloudy water, and repeat until it looks less cloudy. It does not need to run perfectly clear. You are removing dusty surface starch, not polishing the rice forever. Do not grind the grains together, because broken grains release even more starch into the pot. After rinsing, drain the rice well. This step matters more than people think. If a puddle of rinse water follows the rice into the pot, your measured ratio is no longer measured. Let it sit in a strainer for a minute, or tilt the bowl carefully until the extra water stops running. Then measure the cooking water. For 1 cup, about 200 grams, of rinsed white long grain or jasmine rice, start with 1 1/4 cups, about 300 milliliters, of water. If your rice package gives a different stovetop ratio, use that as the baseline for that exact rice. The key is to start measured, then adjust only after you taste the finished batch. Use the same measuring cup for rice and water. It sounds obvious, but mixed measuring habits make rice hard to diagnose. A dry measuring cup for rice and a liquid cup for water can still work if you are precise. But when you are learning, keep the measuring tool consistent. Then, if the rice is wet or dry, you know the change came from water amount, heat, lid fit, or rest, not from a hidden measuring mistake. Level the rice before the heat goes on. You do not need to stir after this. Just make sure the grains are spread evenly under the water. A mound of rice cooks unevenly. Shallow areas dry first, while deeper areas stay wet. An even layer gives the steam a fair chance to move through the pot. Bring the pot just to a boil over medium-high heat. This first boil helps the water heat evenly. As soon as you see steady bubbles across the surface, lower the heat. Do not let it roar for several minutes. A hard boil throws starch around, pushes grains against the pot, and makes the bottom more likely to scorch. Match the burner to the pot. A tiny pot on a huge burner gets hot up the sides, and the bottom can scorch before the center finishes. A wide pot on a weak burner may never settle into steady steam. After the boil, use the smallest burner that can keep a gentle simmer. On electric or induction stoves, move the pot to a cooler burner if the first one holds too much heat. Turn the heat low and put the lid on. From here, the pot needs steady, trapped steam. A little steam at the edge is fine. A strong blast means the heat is too high or the lid is leaking. No activity at all may mean the burner is too low. You want quiet simmering, not silence and not violence. Once the lid is on, do not stir. This is the hardest part because doing nothing feels wrong. But stirring breaks softened grains and drags wet starch from the bottom upward. Your job is not to rearrange the rice. Your job is to control the heat and keep the steam environment stable. Watch the steam instead of opening the pot. If steam blasts out and water sputters around the lid, turn the heat down. If the pot smells toasted too early, turn it down immediately. If the lid looks completely still after several minutes, raise the heat slightly. These tiny adjustments protect the bottom without disturbing the grains. Near the end, you can check without wrecking the rice. Do not stir and do not dig a hole through the center. If you are unsure, crack the lid briefly, tilt the pot a little, and look for loose water at the edge. Then close it again. One quick check is fine. Repeated peeking turns a steady steam method into guessing. When the water is absorbed, the surface looks quiet and dimpled, not soupy. You may see little holes where steam escaped. Do not dig to the bottom with a spoon. If you need to check, tilt the pot gently and look for loose water at the edge. If water still runs, give it another minute or two on low. Turn off the heat and rest the pot, still covered, for 10 minutes. This rest is not optional waiting time. It lets moisture redistribute from the wet top and hot bottom into the whole batch. It also firms the grains enough that they can be fluffed without smearing. If you skip the rest, rice often looks wet even when the water is absorbed. Start the 10-minute rest after the heat is off, not while the pot is still simmering, and keep the lid closed until the timer finishes. After resting, open the lid and fluff gently from the edges. Use a fork, rice paddle, or spoon, and lift rather than mash. You are releasing steam and separating grains, not stirring a porridge. If the rice looks a little wetter on top, fold that top layer through once, then let it sit uncovered for a minute before serving. If the rice is wet but cooked, leave it uncovered for a few minutes so extra steam can escape. If the rice is dry or chalky in the center, add 1 or 2 tablespoons, 15 to 30 milliliters of water, cover, and steam on low for a few more minutes. Rescue depends on the problem. Wet rice needs evaporation. Dry rice needs a little more steam. If the bottom's scorched, do not scrape the burnt layer into the good rice. Scoop the fluffy rice off the top and leave the stuck part behind. For the next batch, lower the simmer, use a heavier pot if you have one, or add a tablespoon or 2 more water. Change one variable at a time so you learn what your stove and pot need. The next batch is where you get consistent. If the rice was wet, use a little less water or rest longer, but do not also change the pot and burner. If it was dry, add a little water next time. If it's scorched, lower the heat first. Change one thing, cook one more batch, and your pot will teach you the right setting faster than any universal rule. The pattern is rinse gently, drain well, measure the water, level the rice, bring it just to a boil, lower the heat, cover it, and leave it alone. Then rest it covered before fluffing. If your rice is mushy, the next fix is usually less loose starch, a steadier low simmer, or a longer covered rest, not more stirring. Write down the water amount once, and the next batch becomes much easier to repeat.